Hello and welcome everybody to another edition of Midweek Matters. Joined by Charlie White, who is arms folded, jacket on, intensely staring at me.
Well, it is a cold day, so that's why I'm wearing a jacket. We haven't paid the heater bill, obviously, for this podcast studio as well, because it's never warm in here. But that's your decision to try and save money, which I completely respect.
You're looking at me very intensely.
I'm not. I do have a gripe to pick with you.
Go on.
And the listeners actually let me know. First of all, I'll find his name quickly. But anyway, the story is that basically the start of this week, you've now pivoted your 13 wins theory to make the 8, and you've changed it to 12. After spouting from round 2, you have to have 13 wins.
Yep.
I said, 12 might be enough. So you're like, no, it won't be. And this listener originally had said to me, I've got a great drinking game for you. And I was like, oh, yeah, what is it? And he said, well, guess what? Every time Jimmy says you need 13 wins to make the 8, have a sip. You'll be smashed. He said it on Fox, Triple M, the buy around, anywhere. And then he, of course, heard that, it's James Hay is his name. I found out, James Hay. He, of course, then said, well, Jimmy's actually pivoted this week and, no one called him out for it. Cheese didn't call him out on it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So I put out a hypothetical, a maybe. Like it maybe this year, due to unforeseen circumstances, 12 might be enough, but it might not be. But I know what will get you in the finals, 13 wins, and that is what teams should be aiming for. But this year, due to the cluster of teams that can't seem to perform on a regular basis, 12 or maybe 12-1-11 record could get you into playoffs, Charlie.
It could. But for the whole year, you said 13. So you just thought...
Okay, if I'm a team planning, what do I need to play finals? I need 13 wins.
Yeah. But you pivoted it slightly by saying 12 might be enough, and it's okay. It's fine. It doesn't bother me at all.
And you know what? I could have been wrong, and I could be wrong again, which would have put my initial statement right. So let's see what pans out.
We'll see what happens. So which one do you think it is then? Is 12 enough or is 13 enough?
Well, the way I'm looking at it this year, I think 12 and a very positive for and against may sneak you in.
12 and wins 1 draw, or is 12 just 12?
Just 12.
Okay.
And, a little bonus point would go a long way.
Yeah, I'm sure
It'd solve the issue of a shit for and against.
It would. I do have a Rockbuster again this week.
Oh, yeah, John Bateman. I'm surprised I didn't get that because he was on the run sheet as well.
Yeah,
We were
it was
talking
an
about
easy
John,
one. It was like, let's get it easy for everyone to bring it back
John
in.
Batman.
Some people were sending in things like Beetle Man and Ant-Man, thinking it was had to be a superhero. We should have said, for those people who didn't know what Rockbusters was when we used to do it, it's basically an anagram for an NRL player. An anagram?
No, not an anagram. No, not an anagram. A cryptic clue.
Cryptic clue.
Yeah.
What's an anagram again?
An anagram is where you use the words in a name and change it into something else using every letter in the particular phrase or word or whatever it is. But no, we are. So basically how Rockbusters work, it's a bit like Blockbusters. So you give the initial a lot of the time. We don't do this for obvious reasons, but there's a cryptic clue which describes a current or former NRL player / personality. So last week's clue was...
Can't remember.
A
Beatle superhero.
A Beatles...
Beatle superhero.
A Beatle superhero.
John Lennon. So take the John from that. And then Batman, similar to Bateman. Bateman.
Yeah. So obviously inspired by Carl Pilkington's Rockbusters, which was a steal from Blockbusters.
Yeah.
So yeah, look, we're not looking to write a crossword or a cryptic clues for the paper. We're not going to be the buy round won't be bringing out brain training puzzles with these clues anytime soon because. Some of them are absolutely ridiculous, may require you to not just think, but certainly think outside the box.
And this one is a tough one this week. And I'll just go through it now. The first name of an NBA player who may be wasting their... What are you interrupting? It's still an NRL player. It's not an NBA player. This is just the clue.
I know. Go on. Sorry.
The first name of an NBA player who may be wasting their potential due to poor behaviour. My favourite snack is corn. And thanks so much for having me at your home. It's been wonderful and you've been lovely to me.
Jesus Christ.
It's a tough one.
You know what? Can you repeat that again?
The first name of an NBA player who may be wasting their potential due to bad behaviour. My favourite snack is corn. And thank you for having me at your place. You've been wonderful to me. You've been gracious.
So are you using the first name in this clue? It's just like that.
To break down the first name. So two of those parts are for a first name.
That's not a cryptic clue.
It is cryptic. It's breaking it down.
It's not. It's got to be. You've got to put the name. You can't just say, "Oh, that's the first name of."
No, like that part of the name, you need the first name of an NBA player who's wasting their potential.
But that's not a cryptic clue.
In my opinion, it is cryptic.
It's not.
It's a clue. It's a clue because I'm saying it's a clue, and it's cryptic.
So I had to get the name Josh.
Yeah.
In for Josh Adokar.
Yeah.
And I had to say, like, the player agent receives the offer and is shocked. So I was like,
yeah, that was terrible.
But that's how you get a Josh in.
Yeah, but I've managed to get a something in there, 2 letters of a 5-letter name. Good luck with that if you get it. And obviously, first YouTube comedy gets it right, gets a hat or T-shirt, whatever they want. First Instagram DM, if anyone gets it right, is a hat and T-shirt.
Yeah,
gets a hat or T-shirt.
I think we'll be holding on to those hats and T-shirts, Charlie, because I've got no idea. I'm lost. It basically, yeah.
Well, you don't know your NBA.
I guess
we'll say that's why you're not happy.
Well, let's back our listeners in and our viewers in to get that one. Big news: Blaize Talagi leaving the Eels. This is a huge blow for Jason Riles. He's not even got his foot in the door, and his best young players leaving.
It's heartbreaking for Parramatta. It really is.
Tony, producer, is
shattered.
Yeah. Yeah, he was the first to put it in the group chat. Yeah. Like, I don't know if I want to talk about this. He's very upset. Like all Parramatta fans will be. You know, obviously when Riles came to this job, it was spoken about the current roster. A lot of people saying it was good enough to play finals. It's underperforming, and then now he comes in. They need to move some people on. But an issue with the Parramatta Eels has been this inability to keep hold of junior players, and they've got such a big nursery out there, but yet they're not producing anywhere near the same amount from a smaller talent pool, but still a sizable talent pool compared to the Penrith Panthers. And for them to get their hottest young prospect, and that's had a taste of first grade this year, that's done pretty well. Nowhere near the finished product just yet. The best is still to be unearthed with Blaize Talagi. I believe his brother as well is moving on, who's allegedly a magnificent talent, but could it get any worse for Parramatta? It looks like he's going, or they are going, to the Penrith Panthers.
It's heartbreaking for Parramatta, but it's great news for Penrith. I mean, they get
Do they need
another young superstar coming their way. I think the other thing for Parramatta is they've made this song and dance about Gutho moving to the centres for Blaize Talagi, Gutho maybe losing his captaincy. So now what you've done, you've pissed off one of the biggest voices in your dressing room, talked about him moving spots, and then the guy who you were going to put in his place, he's leaving. Now it's a bit awkward. It's like, oh, Gutho, actually, you're definitely fullback. We always wanted you to play fullback. You're our man.
This is a huge blow to Parra. Like, look, I know we get caught up with the hype of young players and arguably too soon, and we probably need to pull it back a little bit. But you speak to people in and around the club, and they're like, this is a player we could build a team around, a new team around. When you've got Talagi, I think personally should have been, if he'd have stayed centres next year, then moved to fullback. But then you look at the excitement of that spine moving forward with Dylan Brown, Moses, Talagi with another, 20 games under his belt. But just like Stefano Utoikamanu leaving the Tigers, it sort of speaks volumes about where this young player thinks the club are at. And I mean, when Penrith come in for you, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. And there has been talk all year that the dressing room at Parramatta isn't amazing. The whole vibe around the club isn't great. You got management against the players against management. And I think the big thing, though, for Penrith is the utility value of Blaize Talagi, and they need a 5'8" for next year, Penrith. Jerome Luai's leaving. And Blaize Talagi's played in the halves this year for Parramatta, and maybe they see him as an option to jump in there next to Nathan Cleary. And as a 5'8", there couldn't be a better guy to play alongside than Nathan Cleary.
This is just like the dream move for him. The dream move. Like, I wonder how Jack Cole's feeling, because I think he potentially was earmarked there to replace Jerome Luai, but
there's no guarantee he'll play 5'8". Obviously,
true.
I mean they've got Taruva leaving, they've got May who's left mid-season, so there is outside back spots that they need to fill.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, I guess you can't really blame Blaize for leaving and getting his head turned when you're presented with that opportunity. Now, I know Parramatta fans might be like, well, sell the club to him, have a bit, be thankful for the club that have helped you through. But when Penrith, I think this might be different to if, say, he had or if it was looking like he was going to go to the Dragons. But when a team like Penrith come knocking at the door, what are you going to do? Look what they've achieved.
Yeah. Penrith have probably got the most pull now in the NRL of any club. I think it was the Roosters for a long time. Melbourne's obviously presents an opportunity for players, but a lot of people can be put off from moving to Melbourne, like you saw, like we might see with Stefano Utoi-Kamanu. But Penrith, when you just think about the system they've got and what it produces, there's no way there's another club that would be higher on players' list than there.
Yeah, you could argue the Roosters in terms of location, which does play a part, Charlie, in a young person's decision making, and they've got different structures in play in terms of the board and the opportunities that they can open up. But that's not to say Penrith don't either. So, yeah, this is another bad day for Parramatta, and just making Jason Riles' job even more difficult than what it was that he stepped into. It'd be interesting to know. I think Riles was a coach in demand, and obviously he was. I think according to sources, he was given the Dragons job, and then things were presented to him, and then he backed out of it based off that new evidence coming to light. I wonder what those conversations were when he was looking at the structure and the foundation of the club and what's in play, players that are there, players that aren't there. I wonder what he was told around Blaize Talagi, and I wonder how much conversation he's had with him and how he's digesting this news.
It also makes you think that maybe the talk about Gutho moving to fullback was a public play to try and ease some concerns that maybe Talagi and his management had.
Yeah, maybe.
Why else did that get out?
Yeah. Oh, maybe quiet Newsweek and Parramatta were the talk of the town. It could be, but it's not happening. So
either way, they've lost him.
They have, and obviously they've got Lomax in next year. Great signing, but I don't know how they're going to cope with this blow. And then obviously Dylan Brown and Moses, I believe, with plenty of options in their favour. Big job for Riles. He's got to make an instant impression. Maybe he has to make an instant impression on those players that Parramatta want to keep.
And maybe he will. Maybe he will. There'd be a reason why he's got the reputation he has and why he's been so in demand. And just to move to the Panthers a bit deeper as well, Brian To'o. The talk is that he potentially wants out of Penrith. Now, his top best mates at Penrith have all sort of left over the last couple of years, and Spencer Lenu's gone to the Roosters, Crichton's gone to the Bulldogs, and now Luai's going to the Tigers. And there is a little bit of talk that maybe Brian To'o wants out.
Look, I reckon I'm going to call BS on this story, because we're getting two different versions. We're getting he's being shopped. Penrith aren't looking to offload him.
Shopped by his management, though, to other clubs.
Oh,
That's
right. Okay,
that could be different.
Sorry. Yeah, okay. Just, for me, nothing's changed for Brian and his management, the facts haven't changed. So when he signed his deal at the Panthers, he knew his his friends would be moving on. He knew that other players that weren't as good as him in the competition would be being paid more. So if his management and him knock on the door of Nathan Cleary and the CEO and Brian Fletcher and say like, oh, these are the players getting more, he just goes, yeah. So what's your point?
Yeah.
Like, if you want to be the best paid winger in the game, don't play for Penrith.
No.
Because they're not going to give it to you.
They've got a really strict policy with their salary cap and how they manage it. They'll have one high paid winger and one lower paid winger, but they have a set number that they'll pay for a high paid winger, and they won't go over that.
Yeah.
And that's why they lost someone like Crichton as well, because they refused to pay more than what they deemed a top level centre should be paid.
Yeah. I guess with the benefit of hindsight, had they have known May was going to be moved on, they may have gone harder for Crichton and maybe less so on Isaac Tanger. So put more into Crichton and less into Tanger, or allowed him to, or allowed Isaac Tanger to go.
Yeah.
And maybe, just maybe, Brian Toto is looking and going, well, hang on, how didn't you see this pattern emerging? But look, Brian Toto would have known full well that Zach Lomax, who plays on the wing, he wasn't at the time, would be offered way more money than him, and he could go and get way more money outside of the Penrith Panthers. I think there would be clubs that would be circling and going, well, yeah, we'll pay you more. We'll pay. He's a fantastic player.
But how much more? He's a winger. Like I saw on 360, they were talking about, Tigers should give him $1 million a year. You just can't give a winger $1 million a year. Yes, he can give you 250 metres a game, and that first or second carry, he can make a huge impact. But $1 million a year?
He can do that at Penrith. Might be a different story at the Tigers. So the way Penrith plan their game is obviously for their forwards to limit the yardage of the opposition with line speed intent in defence. So what does that mean? They put the kicker under enormous amounts of pressure, but usually Edwards, Toto, Taruva catch the ball, and obviously now with the downtime rule coming into play, gives them so much space to run into, versus playing at a team like the Tigers, where because they don't defend as well, they concede more line breaks, they concede more meters in defence, they're further back when they receive the ball, which means the defence is more advanced on them. So Brian Toto in a different team wouldn't be as affected. He would, if he leaves, and maybe perhaps when he plays for Samoa, he realises just how good, and when he plays for, obviously State of Origin is a different beast as well, but he would recognise just how good his Penrith pack of forwards are and the work that they do for him. It'd be very different. To pay a winger $1 million would be, with the current salary cap, would be a huge play. A huge play from the Tigers.
Yeah.
And a gamble and a risk, and you know what, you could argue it could really upset the team dynamics.
Well, but even it just affect the balance of your salary cap. The way the salary cap is these days, you can probably have 3 guys and $1 million a year. But if you do that, then you're not going to have a very deep squad. So I think Manly have 3 guys on $1 million a year. Broncos are going to when Walsh's upgrade kicks in. It does mean you haven't got the depth there across the board. Because if think about it, if you've got Luai, if the Tigers did it, Luai is on 1.4 allegedly.
1.2.
1.2. Okay. Yeah. 1.2, then you give Toto $1 million a year, then who's going to be your other highly paid player?
Coruscant,
but hookers don't get that as much as you would think.
8.
He'd be 6, 7, 8, maybe around that. But then you need a fullback, you need an elite front rower, you need an elite back rower. Like you run out of money pretty quickly. It wouldn't work to pay a winger that, unless you think that they can have as much impact as a front rower, which they won't.
No. And even that, like, there's players that pay outside backs fullback money, but that don't play fullback.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just doesn't seem to add up. And obviously this was tossed up and speculated, but the Tigers, if he's available, you'd go after Brian Todd, but you've got to make a smart business decision. And you can't pay him, what, if they're saying he's on $650 at the Penrith Panthers, I don't know if you can afford to go more than 100, more than that.
Yeah.
Really, before you really start to upset your own. Yeah, we got this great player, but before you really start to have a detrimental to your own cause, and also like what that says to the rest of the group, which is massively important.
Yeah. The other factor in this is one of the reasons it's understood that Todd is a little bit unsettled, and maybe why some of the other players have left the Panthers like Luai, is there was a group of the Penrith team that were very disappointed with how Penrith handled the Stephen Crichton situation. They thought that he was a lot more valuable to the team than Penrith seemed to think, and they watched him leave, and then it sort of made them realise, oh, well, they're going to be ruthless with us. Like they said, we mean everything to them, but it is just a business for them, and they have a certain value placed in all of us. And it's kind of awoken that side of them where they're like, oh, we've got our premierships now, we may as well piss off.
Maybe, yeah. But surely you air those grievances when at the back end of last year, or even not even the back end of last year, it was the beginning of last year when Crichton signed for the Dogs, and seeing him, go out the door. And obviously in that 18 months, Stephen Crichton has developed even further than the person that he was, but he was identified by the Bulldogs. And yeah, maybe they should have, again, like I say, with the benefit of hindsight, I think there's probably some internal regret there about allowing him to go, and just how valuable, not only the value that he brought then, but the person he was developing into. And obviously we've seen, other players leave, circumstantial with May, but I reckon they would have fought harder to keep him had they known what was coming.
Yeah.
But I don't know. But you know what? Even you might look at it and go, well, hang on. How come you're looking after Nathan, Isaiah, and Dylan?
Yeah. That's the understanding that is the divide that then, not a divide, that's probably an overkill, but that is what rubs some players up the wrong way.
I guess that's the advantage of playing in those spine areas. Obviously Luai as well, but they've got their rules and regulations, and there's no way they could match the money the Tigers gave for Luai, again, without completely sabotaging their own cap. And I think Luai was probably, again, like sometimes players have want a new challenge. Like you can see why Luai did leave and wanted to have his own team and cement his own legacy on a football team. Whether or not that will happen remains to be seen, but you can see why players do want to leave and have a new challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. Either way, they've signed Blaize Talagi. He's coming to Penrith. They've got this amazing factory there where just keeps on developing players. And also
that McLean guy, like
he's great.
He's played about 3 or 4 games.
Yeah.
And he's starting to look elite.
Yeah. They also plucked Paul Alamotti from the Dogs, who was playing reserve grade. He looks great. He's injured at the moment, but he was looking great.
That McLean dude, though, looks...
Yeah, Casey McLean. He looks awesome.
He looks elite.
Yeah, he's got a brother, Jesse, as well.
Like, he looks like a footballer. Like, he looks like an athlete. He looks in the mould of Crichton.
Definitely. And very much similar to Crichton when he was a bit younger, body shape-wise, yeah. They are the favourites of the premiership. They might win their third or fourth premiership in a row.
Fourth, yeah.
So, I mean, it's not panic stations for Penrith. And congrats on signing Blaize Talagi as well.
Oh, no, he's not done.
No,
he's not. You know what?
We've got some great mail.
We do, but Charlie, what have we learnt? We don't go off.
early, especially me. I always jinx things as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So no doubt Ivan Cleary is listening to this.
Yeah.
Brian Fletcher listening to this and just going, Charlie, shut up, you're going to jinx it.
And they've just found out about the divide in their club as well. They're shocked. To a club, though, that has had a great year as well this year, the Dragons. I think we spoke about at the start of the year how tough it was for the Dragons, the situation they're in with recruitment and how players didn't want to seem to go to the Dragons. Well, Shane Flanagan has come in. They've obviously competing for the 8 this year, but then they signed Damien Cook, which is signing a former Australian player, amazing. And now it looks like they're going to sign Val Holmes as well, another Australian player. This is massive for the Dragons. They've completely flipped the script on what their reputation as a club was all about.
Yeah, I think it's all down to Coach Flanagan as well. He loves his experienced players. He loves bringing those players in that he knows can do a job, and they're not a demand on resources. So what then can he do? He can develop those youngsters. That's exactly what he's doing here. And if Holmes comes to the Dragons, it'd be a great signing that reunited. Well, I couldn't have saw this happening 12 months ago.
No way.
I don't think Holmes would have entertained it.
I couldn't have seen it happening 4 months ago.
Oh,
the start of the season, I couldn't have seen.
Yeah,
maybe
at the start of the season, it would have
2025.
been a bit of a can you get me something else? But I think now it's an attractive option. It really is, and it's all thanks to Shane Flanagan and the lads out of there for putting in, and they've not been perfect, but they're looking a lot better. They're in the fight for the finals, so it's starting to become a little bit more of an attractive proposition to head to the Dragons, and that's why they've got the ability to recruit like they are doing. And you look, all the talk about Cam Serraldo being coach of the year, and again signing some of those experienced players that he feels he can squeeze some more juice out of and get them to do a job and be involved in a system. Well, Coach Flanagan isn't far behind either. Like, he's not that far behind in terms of what he's achieved. Coach Serraldo overturned a lot of the roster, and yes, it's personnel, and that helps with the change, but it's also coaching structure. Flanagan didn't really have the ability to turn over many players, so it's almost pure coaching down there.
Yeah, it really is, and I think with Holmes it will be interesting because where will he play? Sloan was dropped on last weekend, but he's back this weekend playing fullback. They re-signed him as well, so they believe in Sloan. But Val Holmes, his best position is at centre, is at wing.
Fullback. Yeah.
His results when he's played fullback have been a bit mixed, but he can definitely play there. He might be a better option than Sloan.
Well, I think that's probably why the Cowboys are entertaining him moving on, because he's on fullback money.
Yeah.
So I think he was originally signed there as a fullback.
He's on about $1 million a year at the moment.
Which is huge for someone that plays centre wing. We've just spoke about Brian Toto playing on the wing, taking up $1 million. Anybody playing in the centre position, taking up $1 million, it's too much. So, where he fits in at the Dragons, talk of Jack Baird moving on as well. So, and obviously Lomax going, so there's some spots there. I think Flanagan will persist with Sloan for the short term to start next year, put some more weight again. The great thing about signing people like Damien Cook and Val Holmes is they're not a demand on resources. You can trust them to do their thing, get prepared to play, be ready to play. With Holmes, you could move in position, but the off-season for Sloan and Flanagan will be about defence, and he'll put so much work into him. I think he'll trust them to start, but then there's that backup there. Obviously, I don't know what's happening with Cody Ramsey, whether or not he'll be able to play NRL again. That's a bit of a mystery. But obviously, with Holmes there in the background, if Sloan has some of those games like he has done, he'll just slot Val in there and give some time for Sloan to develop further in New South Wales Cup.
Yeah, absolutely. And moving along then from the Dragons, the Newcastle Knights, Jimmy, they've got their 5th halves combination of the year now. They've dropped Jackson Hastings, and in comes Phoenix Crossland this time to the halves. He's going to partner up with Gamble. They can't figure out who their halves are. They really can't.
No, it's the choice paradox a little bit. And look, if you're underperforming and you need to make change. But mate, at the start of the season, they were chopping and changing ridiculously. I still think the Knights are struggling to find out who they really are. Did this team with Kalen Ponga, or they're a team that can play without him? Let's not forget, after they lost to the Dogs, I think and Kalen Ponga was ruled out for a number of weeks. I think they won the next 3 or 4 in a row, playing a different style. Then he comes back. So they're still figuring things out. But look, I think this has got to be the last change. And he needs to stick with what he's got if there are any hope of making the finals. They could be one of those teams that jag in on 4 with a decent for and against record.
Yeah, if this goes well.
If
but
this
I could
goes
see if
well.
this goes poorly for 2 games, you could see him bringing back a different combination.
Yeah.
Like Will Price, he played a couple games, looked good. Now he's back in reserve grade. It started off the year as Gamble Hastings. Then it went to Gamble Cogger. Then it went to Cogger Hastings. Then it went back to Gamble Hastings. Then Gamble got injured and it went to Price Hastings. Then Price got dropped for Gamble and Gamble's fit. Now Hastings has got dropped for Phoenix Crossland.
Yeah, figure that out. Like it's not ideal for, and I guess they're all a bit the same. And you'd be hoping that one of those guys was going to kick, and not just kick, but be consistent. That's what O'Brien would have been looking for. That at least one of those would kick and be consistent. He doesn't have to have this headache, but maybe the anxiety of performance is getting in the way of the Newcastle Knights, and knowing that they've got this almost sword of Damocles hanging over their head to be going, one bad game and I'm out. But obviously, it's a difficult situation because a coach can't afford to just keep picking players that are underperforming. But I think as a half, you want to know. But man, the same sort of thing happened at the Dogs, where it was different. They just kept with Drew Hutchison, kept with him, and then they made that one change, bring Sexton in. That seems to have benefited. Now, obviously, there's a lot more things that go into a team's performance other than that. But really, picking this should have been sorted out in the preseason, and it's dragged on all year.
Yeah, I'd love to see Will Price get this crack as well, get a crack out. I thought he was good when he played, and maybe start next year. That'll be the plan. But let's preview the round, Jimmy, because there's some great games. Thursday it starts off with the Tigers against the Cowboys at Leichhardt Oval. We know the Tigers are a bit better at Leichhardt Oval, and the news for them this week, Stefano's obviously leaving. We're expecting him to announce who it is after the game on Thursday, so maybe we get that information on Friday. It's really hard to see the Tigers winning this one.
Well, you say that, but there's no Cotter, no Tamalolo, and the Cowboys have a shocker of a record at Leichhardt. And
was it last year the Tigers and the Cowboys both beat each other by 60?
It was.
Yeah.
And obviously, Coach Payton has a history there. I'm with you, though. I can't see the Tigers beating the Cowboys. The Cowboys they're in the shit fight for the top 4. Like, that's where they should be aiming. And if they're going to play top 4, they really can't afford to lose at the Tigers at Leichhardt. Like, it's possible. But if you're serious about making that top 4, you just got to come down here, be professional, get the job done against the Tigers. Yes, it's their spiritual home. Yes, they're going to be highly motivated. Yes, we've got a couple of middle forwards missing. But let's not be dragged down to their level, with all due respect.
And it would have been a rotten week at the Tigers anyway, with the new Stefanos out. Also, De Silva, Lockie Galvin, and I can't remember who the other player was.
Yeah.
Lelia, maybe.
Yeah.
They missed the team bus in Auckland. That's pretty poor.
Yeah, it happens though. Like it does happen.
Yeah.
I think.
But when you're the Tigers, you can't afford things like that to happen.
Yeah, I'm surprised it got out.
Yeah.
Well,
everything gets out of the Tigers.
Sorry. No, I'm not surprised. It shouldn't have got out.
Yeah.
And obviously, I think they said they were looking after one of their mates, and
they
missed the alarm. He had a concussion.
Yeah.
But look, and it wasn't alcohol related. But you know what? There was talk about Bateman leaving, and he was annoyed that senior players were being treated like kids, and the kids were being treated like senior players. Well, that's a rookie mistake to miss the team bus, and standards. Look, everyone's got an excuse that to be. Everybody does. Oh, my alarm didn't go off. Well, you know what? It should have. And while we were looking after our mate, I don't know the ins and outs of looking after your mate because he's been concussed. It's like, well, is he the first player to be concussed after a game in New Zealand? And
also, what were they doing? Icing him? Like, was he lying down there? Well, I had an ice pack on his head and just fanning him, looking after him.
Yeah.
They probably were at Danny Dooley's. Great place, Danny Dooley's.
We're not going to go down
Allegedly.
But yeah, I mean, not a great week for the Tigers. Return from New Zealand. I'm going to go the Cowboys, but there's just this. There's a slight worry.
There's a feeling about it. I agree. I got a little feeling about the game, but you can't tip anyone but the Cowboys.
No, you can't.
What was the game last week where you had the feeling about it? And it was
Parra against Melbourne.
Melbourne, they started strong.
And they started strong. They just were pants by the end of it.
Next game then, the Warriors against the Eels. Have we written off the Warriors a bit too early? They run home here. They've got obviously the Eels this week, which they should win at home. Then they travel to the Brisbane, take on the Dolphins. Got Manly away as well. Then they got the Dogs at home, Sharks away, and the bye to finish. It is a tough run home for them.
Yeah, it is. It's doable for them, and they've got that 1 point up their sleeve.
So how many wins are they on at the moment? 9? 8? So they need to win 4 of those games to get to 12 wins. So they'll beat Parramatta, you would think. Then they've got to win 3 of Dolphins, Manly, Dogs, Sharks. They can only lose 1 of those games. They've got to win it either Manly or Sharks.
Yeah.
And win in Brisbane as well. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, that is going to be very difficult. And you know what? One of the main reasons why I've gone away from the 13 wins is because I'm struggling to see how any of those teams in the mixer win 3 or 4 of their next games. It's that's what I'm struggling to comprehend. How any of those teams, like you put those games in front of the Warriors at the start of the season and you'd back them. But the way they're playing at the minute, you wouldn't.
Yeah.
But surely they get the victory against the Eels. Like the Eels, they fought hard last week against Melbourne, and they just fell out of. They just run out of energy and run out of ideas in the end.
Then we move on. You got the Warriors win this one, though?
Yes.
Okay, we move on to the Friday night. Dolphins against the Roosters. Manu's back. Massive for the Roosters to bring him back, get him ready for finals. And the Dolphins, I think the last 2 weeks could define their season. Up against Penrith big with not long to go, they lose that one. And then 14-0 up against the Titans, they lose that. I think they're going to regret those 2 weeks.
I think you could be right, especially the Titans loss.
Yeah.
That's a huge loss for them. And then this game's over in Perth, bizarrely.
Yeah, bizarre, yeah.
Roosters all the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Roosters were actually really good against Manly. They played really well, especially defensively through the middle. 3 interception passes, 1 barge over from dummy half that never should have happened. They were by far and away the better team. They defended so well. I think the Roosters are fine-tuning their game for September. They've got some work to do, but they're not letting this one slip.
They've got the best roster in the game, the Roosters. In my opinion, they should be up there and competing. But just on the Dolphins, I did predict that the Dolphins would fall away as well.
Yeah, well
when
done.
they were sitting like 5th. So just
well done, Charlie.
Good prediction from me. Then Saturday, the Titans against the Broncos. AJ Brimson might be returning back from his groin injury.
Where's he going to play?
Well, fullback. He took Keeney's spot last time.
Yeah, Keeney's. You've got to stick with Keeney. Mate, he's the future.
I love
him.
him.
You got to make a big call, but he's the future, Keeney.
I love him,
mate. And we spoke to Kieran Foran, and he was like, it was overpraised for what I was expecting. I was like, oh, Kieran Foran was talking him up, like he must be good. And it wasn't just he works hard. It's like you could hear the enthusiasm in his voice. My same game multi, this one. Actually, just on the Broncos, mentioned it yesterday, Byron Live. I reckon they've got to get rid of these open training sessions, closed training sessions. Get rid of them. Just love the fans, love the ability to interact, but I think it's affecting the Broncos. And talk of should Reynolds step down as captain, hand it over to Pat Carrigan. I don't know what that's going to do. they've obviously had these meetings throughout the year where it's like, right, this is it. We're going to focus in. The best thing that they could do, in my opinion, is get rid of the access for fans at training. Yes, you do all your usual stuff, and it might be hard, but it's basically kids, teenagers, whatever it is, coming to watch them train. And it's not normal, and they need to get laser focused because they can salvage this year. They still can, and while they still can, I think they need to do something like that. I think that's the easiest thing to do that can have direct results on the attitude, the environment, and the level of performance at the Broncos.
When you say it's affecting them, do you think it's just making them feel too confident, affecting their ego, or what do you mean by that?
Well, it's unnatural for NRL players to be like treated that way at training. So I know there's some young players and it's their new experience, so that's the only thing that they've known.
Yeah.
But just how many of them deserve that level of fanfare, and how many of those older players that have been around for a little bit longer are going, hang on, this isn't normal.
Yeah.
This isn't normal. This isn't what we've seen before. So I just think it just helped them focus and concentrate. And even, you gotta love and appreciate people like Reece Walsh. We were there at that game, Charlie, at Suncorp, and watched him go around and have so much time for the fans of the game. And and that is brilliant, and that should be applauded, and that should continue. But sometimes at training, you probably got to be a little bit selfish. And say, look, we appreciate the support, but we're just going to close it off because we're here. We're doing our processes here. We're at work. We're at business. You don't go halfway through a set of 6 and run off for a selfie or high five from the fans. Like, you're at work. Fundamentally, you're at work, and I think it's slightly taking away from their level of focus. We saw Coach Walters with a press conference, and he couldn't get his words out because of the cheers. He's like, is that Reece Walsh again? And it was joking, it was lighthearted, but this isn't normal. And I personally just feel it's something that they could implement, and it might get a fix on results. And
you've got the Broncos win this one?
I do.
Did you do your same game multi?
No,
already,
I'm just about to do it now. So I've got the Broncos -4.5. I think they'll cover that.
I think the Titans win.
Do you?
Yeah, I think the Titans are morals. I think this is the best bet of the weekend.
Morals?
The Titans, yeah. Yep.
I
think it's been probably a tough week at Brisbane. Obviously, Selwyn Cobbo's going through his domestic violence investigation. I don't think any charges have been laid yet, but he's under investigation. He's not playing. I think there's a lot of pressure on Brisbane. It's a young group, and I don't think they've handled the pressure well this year when they've been under pressure. And I think the Titans are clicking, and the Titans have found something. I think the Titans win.
Okay. Well, I'm clearly backing against you with the same game multi. Broncos -4.5, over 53.5 points. And with that, a couple of anytime try scorers, Parra, Stags, and Reece Walsh.
It should be good. Saturday afternoon footy. I've loved watching the Titans at the moment. What Des Hasler is building there, I think it's going to be really exciting the next couple of years.
They are a fun team to watch.
This next game then on Saturday, it's the Storm against the Dragons. Munster's back starting this week. Obviously, came off the bench last week. Wishart is the man who moves to the bench. Incredible season for Tyron Wishart.
Yeah, he's been great.
Incredible season. He's done so well for them.
Former Dragon as well.
Yeah.
Playing against his old club off the bench, so...
Should be good. And then the Dragons, as we said earlier, they brought Tyrrell Sloan back to fullback. Really hard to see the Storm not winning this one and winning this one comfortably.
Yeah, they've had a couple of little wobbles, the Storm, but again, I think they're that team now that are starting to really laser focus in on their performances coming up, leading into finals. Obviously, Cam Munster come off the bench last week, starting again. That spine, when it clicks, it's the best in the comp on paper. It really is. When you've got Pappenhausen, Jerome Hughes, who's what a season he's having with Munster and Grant. You got your work cut out there to stop that, and they've got some good people in and around that core spine. Should be a dominant performance from the Storm, I think, and a comprehensive victory. The Dragons, they do struggle. They either especially when they play the bigger teams, they have tended to struggle. That was evident against Penrith. That, to be fair, at Win looked in first gear.
Yeah. It was, and Ben Hunt had a really tough night with the boot as well. But yeah, I think the Storm was going to be too good. Then you go to Saturday night, the late games. It's the two injury ravaged teams sort of going up against each other. The Sharks against the Bunnies. Tough for the Sharks. They've lost now Ronaldo Mulatalo for the next month as well. Worst possible time, I think, to lose him. He's so important for them. He's the heartbeat for them when he's out there with his energy and such a devastating try scorer.
He's out for a month.
Yeah.
So
could be a month. That's what they're saying.
Yeah, medial. Or for the way he moves. Depends how bad it is, but you imagine he's doing, well, like all players, doing absolutely everything to get back because he knows how important he is. I think the Sharks should get the victory over the South Sydney, though.
You know, it's funny, the different sort of mentalities of football players as well. Like Greg English, did a bit of work with him last year for Footy Talk. And I said to him, this guy's out with an MCL injury. And he's like, an MCL injury? And I'm like, yeah, he's out for 4 to 6 weeks with an MCL injury. And he's like, I played with an MCL injury my whole career.
Yeah. But there's different degrees of MCL injuries.
Yeah.
Like there's different gradings.
Yeah.
But yeah.
He was flabbergasted that people would miss time through an MCL injury. Tough player, Greg Inglis, as is Ronaldo Mulatalo. And I say Ronaldo Mulatalo, isn't it?
Well, he actually came on the show. So
Ronaldo Mulatalo's a friend of the bar.
And he's probably listening to this now going, you piece of shit, Charlie White.
Yeah.
And rightly so. Ronaldo, I believe you. I believe in you. And I reckon you're going to be back in no time. And good luck to you. We love you and we love you.
We do love you, Ronaldo Mulatalo. The Sharks, they've got to win this game, though, because otherwise it really can start getting bad for them. Nico Hines still out for a few more weeks.
Yeah, I think they will.
Then Sunday 2:00 game, Panthers against the Knights. We've spoken about both these clubs quite a lot already. I'm guessing you got the Panthers beating the Knights.
Correct.
Then the last game of the round, probably the most important game of the entire round, I think. Belmore Oval, sellout. Dogs v the Raiders. Raiders starting to find some form. 3 wins in a row since Fogarty's come back.
Yes, they're going about their business very quietly down there.
6-3 with Fogarty, 3-6 without him.
And they beat the Dogs magic round. But I think the Dogs were the better team that day. Personal opinion, obviously. Surely the Dogs win at Belmore. Like, after their masterclass against the Broncos, they come back, a packed out Belmore, like it usually always is. Just by the way, anyone listening, I don't have access to tickets.
I thought you said you had 4 spare tickets. You were looking to give them away.
I'm gonna be that scalper on game day. Tickets for sale, 4 tickets.
Probably just jump the fence at Belmore.
Don't encourage that.
But you probably could.
Clown.
There's probably a few little areas. Just jump the fence, save your cash if it's sold out.
Do you know, actually we
go via the train tracks.
I think last time we were there was work on the rail, and the workers were just sat off, just watching the games. Like,
was that the trial game? Maybe it might have been.
No, it wasn't the trial. It
was Josh Reynolds' last game. Tony saying, last year on the Saturday. 4:00 Sunday. I wish I would be there. Unfortunately, we're doing the Panthers Knights game for Triple M. But Crichton's back, Fox is back. You got the Doggies winning.
I sure do, Charlie.
I'm gonna tip the Raiders. I think the Raiders win. I think they're gonna.
I think that's.
This is gonna be a huge game. I can't wait for it.
It should be a great game, but I think the Dogs should have enough. It'd be interesting to see how the Dogs play if they move the ball just as much as they did against the Broncos. I don't know if they will. I don't know if that was opposition specific. But yeah, like I said, last time they played the Raiders just jagged the try. I think Tracy dropped 2 tries from errors. They should have enough. They should be confident going into this one.
And then before we go, don't forget Rockbusters. First YouTube comment gets it. First Instagram DM that gets it.
How could we forget? And also, big thanks to our listeners reaching 15,000 subscribers on YouTube. Thank you so much. So if you haven't already, please do subscribe. It does mean a lot to us and helps support the podcast. So that's all we've got time for. We'll catch everyone next week on the Buy Round.